You are tuned in to another edition of Americana Music Profiles, brought to you by Americana Rhythm Music Magazine and AmericanaMusicMagazine.com. I'm your host, Greg Tutwiler. Let's jump right in to the next exciting interview. The northernmost reaches of Appalachia, actually the hills of southwestern Pennsylvania, were the music launching pad for Cindy G and her music. She spent a season away from home pursuing R&B before coming back to her roots and rediscovering her true love of bluegrass. In this episode, we talked to Cindy about her music, her career, and her most recent CD, Moonshiner's Daughter. Hi, Cindy. Welcome to the podcast this afternoon.
Hi, Greg. It's really great to be with you today.
Yeah, I appreciate you giving us some time to chat and learn more about your life and your music.
Oh, I'm happy to be here to talk about it.
And I talk to people all over the country, all over the world sometimes, and we're fortunate, I guess, to both be on the same side of the coast. I'm in Virginia, you're in Pennsylvania, so...
Yes, I am. I'm in Pennsylvania right now.
Is that where you spent most of your life?
I did. I was born and raised in, I always called the uppermost reaches of, as we say here, Appalachia, southwestern Pennsylvania.
Okay.
About 30 miles outside of Pittsburgh, I was born and raised in a little area called Elizabeth Township. And I moved away quite a few years ago, but my husband and I loved the area so much that we bought an old farmhouse here in Somerset County, Pennsylvania.
Okay. Yeah.
So we have an old barn here that we refurbished, and I give bluegrass concerts in the barn here.
Oh, cool. Okay.
Yes.
So obviously your career these days is about bluegrass music, but if I understand correctly, reading through some of the notes, that's not exactly you started in Appalachia and grew up that way, but kind of took a different path. Is that right?
That's very true. My dad was a bluegrass fiddle player, and I always tell this story too. In fifth grade, whenever the instrument companies came around to the school and wanted you to play something to be in the marching band, I wanted to play the clarinet, and my dad said something to me that just made so much sense. Even as a little fifth grader, he said, "Why don't you play a musical instrument? You don't need an entire marching band to enjoy or play."
Cool.
And he said, "Why don't you play the guitar or the fiddle?" So I started playing guitar in fifth grade, and that was it. I mean, I was just so hooked in music and even songwriting. Once I learned my first 3 chords of G, C, and D, I remember I was already writing songs way back as a little fifth grader.
Mm-hmm. And you kind of went on the opposite direction, right? Rock and roll, R&B, and...
Yes, I mean, I played a little bit of bluegrass music. There were some bluegrass pickers in my neck of the woods there in Elizabeth Township, and that didn't last long, though. I got hooked up in a Pittsburgh band. I don't even want to say what year it is, because it seems like I'm ancient at this point, but it was a really long time ago. It was called the Flash Cats, and it was a very successful Pittsburgh band, and we... revived the career of an old R&B legend, Bull Moose Jackson. We traveled around and played different places with him, and we played a lot of R&B music, but I always wrote songs, and the Flash Cats had a lot of original material and a lot of recordings that were put out at the time, even in record at that time, cassette, and then it moved on to CD, but I wrote a lot of songs in my career for the Flash Cats.
Okay.
And then after the Flash Cats were over, I decided, I really like this. I want to take this music thing more seriously. So I moved to New York City when I was in my late 20s. Mm-hmm. And there I hooked up with some great musicians and producer who I recorded some stuff with there. And I had 2 girls that I played with. We had a band called In the Pink, and I was 3 girls and 3 guys, and that was a whole lot of fun. But that was like the '80s, big hair, rock and roll era, and I was writing songs during that time period too. That was always that's what I consider myself first before anything else, as a singer-songwriter. Okay. So that took me up until that point, and then I eventually moved to New Jersey and settled down and married my husband, and I played in a lot of cover bands there. Again, it was all big hair rock and roll music, and I played electric guitar, and wasn't writing a whole lot then. And then I stopped at some point. My ears couldn't take it anymore. I think it wore my ears out. And I stopped playing completely and probably didn't even touch an instrument for about 5 or 7 years. And then after my son was born, I was saying to my husband, you know, if I ever go back to playing music, I was getting the itch. You know, I said, I think I'd like to go back to playing bluegrass music because you can grow old playing bluegrass music.
Yeah.
And but we had my son in a baby carriage, and we were walking through a park in New Jersey, and there were some bluegrass pickers playing there in a gazebo. So I walked over and just asked, hey, how can I start to do this, and who can I meet that I can play with? And they told me about a place in New Jersey called Albert Music Hall and something else called BOTMA, B-O-T-M-A, Bluegrass and Old Time Music Association. And Albert Hall is every Saturday night. You can go there. It's like $5 to get in. It's all the bluegrass you can stand. And they have organized acts on stage. And people just jam, you know, outside on the parking lot in the front porch. So that's always a big deal in the summer. And then, you know, the BOTMA thing was like a one Sunday a month kind of thing. So that's how I got back into it. I met people, started playing. I started writing songs again. And I put out my first CD, which was all done locally in New Jersey, The Road, in 2012, I think it was, and that got good reviews in Bluegrass Unlimited, and that's how I met Jim Van Cleve, was through the good reviews, and a friend introduced me, and we decided we would collaborate, and then that was my big step into Nashville, was working with Jim Van Cleve on my second project, which was the Jailbreak CD.
Yeah, and of course, most folks know who Jim is and his Grammy work and all that kind of stuff. So that's really cool that your journey kind of brought you full circle and then back into collaboration with him. And if I read right, I think you got to work with some pretty significant bluegrass musicians.
Oh my! Here's this unknown person coming out of Pennsylvania, and he put together like the all-star cast of bluegrass players for both CDs. But the first CD, the Jailbreak CD, I had Todd Phillips on bass, I had Rob Ikes on dobro, I had Scott Festal on banjo, Aaron Ramsey on mandolin, I had Sam Bush on mandolin on two of the pots, I had Seth Taylor on guitar, I had Brian Sutton on guitar, who am I leaving out? Jim, of course, on fiddle, and I don't know. I hope I didn't leave anybody out there, but I mean, it was still Rhonda Vincent. She she sang vocalist on the Jailbreak cut. So I just went from playing in my little local circles to here I am immersed with the best of the best in bluegrass. And what's so funny too about working with Jim was that one of the first CDs that I got from a friend at the beginning of me just getting back into this bluegrass music, it was about 12 years ago now, I think it was the Kerry Hassler Hard Rain CD that was produced by Jim Van Cleve. Yeah. And of course he played on it, and I loved that CD. And to me, I mean, I do have a real appreciation for all the traditional bluegrass and, Flatt and Scruggs and Monroe and all of that. I mean, they're the forefathers of the bluegrass music. Sure. But I, as a singer-songwriter, I think I am a little out of the box with some of my, songwriting, how I go with my songwriting. And I love the newer bluegrass music. And to me, that Kerry Hassler and Hard Rain CD like really epitomized everything that I thought, wow, I wish I could make music like this. And so who would know that, how many years was it after that, maybe 8 years later, that I would get to meet and work with Jim Van Cleve. And I'd say that was like a real dream come true for me.
Did you have any idea while you were in your rock and R&B phase of your career that all of this kind of almost a reemergence in some ways, maybe a new emergence in other ways of the bluegrass and string and roots music thing was going on simultaneously? Were you connected at all to that genre? No.
Nope. Had no idea. Wasn't following bluegrass, any of that kind of music at that time. You know, it was all big hair rock and roll music, and even to this day, I'll still listen to some of those old '80s bands like Winger or whatever. Yeah. I had nothing. I was totally clueless about it at that time.
How does your songwriting, or does it change from the kind of music you were playing to shifting into the kind of music you're playing now? When lyrically and when you're feeling these things out as you're putting them into words, does that part stay the same, or does the whole process shift for you?
Well, it probably shifted a little bit. I think whenever I started writing purposely for the bluegrass genre, I thought about my subject matter. I tried to write a lot of songs that would, I'm very inspired by real life and local folklore and history of especially the southwestern Pennsylvania, where I was born and raised. And so I always hear stories, like on the Jailbreak CD, there's a song called Hexie, which was about a witch that lived in the hills here in southwestern Pennsylvania.
Okay.
Or Living Picture on the Jailbreak CD is a song about the Mather Mine mining disaster, which was in Greene County, Pennsylvania. So my subject matter definitely shifted. I think I wrote more heartbreaking type love songs. Before that, I never thought much about the subject matter of the song. Years ago, I just wrote whatever I was feeling or thinking about. But then, when I started shifting to bluegrass, I was writing songs about something specific. Even Wise County, the Wild Wise County, is about Wise County, Virginia. It's a ghost story, supposedly true ghost story from a girl in Wise County, Virginia. So when I travel, my husband and son and I like to travel a lot, and we go through. We love Hillsville, Virginia in particular, and the big flea market that's down there every Labor Day weekend close to Galax. But we've done the Creeper Trail and all that. So I always get books and things that tell about the local folklore and history or ghost stories, and the Civil War is another thing. So I find I'm writing a lot more songs that have true stories or meanings behind them.
That's neat. So when you play, are you also able to play out in those areas that you just mentioned when you're performing your music, or are you more in the kind of the upper region?
I'm more in the southwestern Pennsylvania, New Jersey, Delaware region, and I mean it'd be nice to break out a little. So we'll see, what the new CD brings.
Yeah, sure.
But there's so many. I know there's so many places and venues and festivals all over the place. So I'm ready to step that up a little bit too.
I always find it interesting how each region kind of has its own pocket of mid-level and entry-level and high-level festivals and events like that, and it's interesting that with the exception of, I guess, the few maybe bigger named acts, a lot of the artists kind of stay within that pocket of festivals, and sometimes folks don't get to hear about the different festivals, say in Virginia, versus the different kinds that are in the upper part of Pennsylvania.
That's very true, and it is surprising to me. There's a lot of festivals across Pennsylvania. There's actually one this weekend, Remington Ride, up there in Center Hall, Pennsylvania. It's about 3 hours from where I'm at right now. But I am surprised at how many of the local Pennsylvania regional bands play, all over at a lot of these same festivals. So it's really kind of a regional thing.
Yeah. You mentioned living on a farm, and I kind of jumped ahead a bit, and we were talking about your songwriting. Do you find that living in that sort of a rural environment is also adds to the ambiance of your songwriting?
Absolutely, for me, because I am a Pennsylvania mountain girl, a country girl at heart. So I'm inspired. I say everything is a song. Everything I see, I'm like, I could write a song about that, or I, put that away in my songwriting bank, I call it, of ideas, and, pull something out whenever I need to write a song. I feel like writing a song. Absolutely. I think living rurally, for me anyway, definitely is inspirational to my songwriting.
And the songwriting actually got you an award, right? You were, I think you said third place, the Chris Austin.
Yes, the third place finalist, winner, whatever you call it, at the Chris Austin songwriting competition at Merlefest in 2016. Yeah, so Jailbreak, the song Jailbreak, the title cut from that CD was the song. So I had to go and perform it live, just me and